Welcome to the Vision Hunters podcast. I'm your host, Cody Story, and this is episode number 7, part 2, The Blood of an Entrepreneur with Elliot Hans. I am attempting to improve the quality of audio on this show. Now, I am new to the podcasting world. This is just something I've been inspired to do that has kind of come into fruition here. I do not claim to be an expert at this. However, I am editing the shows, which is forcing me to listen to the shows, which gives me the opportunity to listen critically. If you have listened to any of the podcasts prior to this one, I'm with you if you were thinking, damn, this dude could improve his quality of audio. I'm 100% with you. So I just Jimmy rigged this little microphone that I was using, and I was attaching it to my clothes, but it seems to be a little hot because I do talk pretty damn loud. So what I did is I clipped it to the microphone that I use when I'm conducting sales, and I'm gonna try this out. I don't know if it's gonna help or not. If it doesn't, I'll Jimmy rig something else next week. Now, back to the show. If you tuned in last week, you already heard part 1, where Elliot talked to us about the early stages of his entrepreneurial journey. In today's episode, Elliot will take you deeper into how he created the vintage-inspired clothing company, Morphine Generation, taking it from 0 to $8 million in 36 months. He's also going to be sharing how he has built his newest highly successful vintage inspired clothing company, Stoned Immaculate. His experience with his ego's dark side, how he rode the coattail of a dragon, the importance of aligning yourself with the right team, what to do with your new big ideas, why he pays attention to his internal blocks and clears them out, his love for the 70s lifestyle and aesthetic, why he puts so much focus on marketing now, and Elliot's 3 powerful tips for creatives and entrepreneurs just getting started on their journey. Now it's time for The Blood of an Entrepreneur, part 2 with Elliot Hans.
How do I make this thing global and take it to the next level? I'm trying to speed up here, but I finally got back to the showrooms. I said, hey, we got 5 stores and we're doing $60,000 so far. I'm thinking we're on top of the world. I booked $60,000, Cody.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge numbers. They're like, it's just a start. And I'm like, yo, this is your job. You're a salesperson. I'm the creator vision guy, the creative director, or, like, you're salespeople. Why do I need to sell you to sell my product? This is crazy. And that's exactly what it is. No one's going to sell your stuff better than you.
Yep.
Which is my dad's favorite quote. And I hate it to this day because it's rung true to this day. I'm 40 years old. I started at 20 or even earlier. And I was always selling my own stuff. But no one's going to sell it better than you. So anyways, I learned a lesson that I need to sell my product to these salespeople to sell it. And that they didn't have the vision that I had. They didn't have the experience of all those people in my house cutting it up and all these other band members and our friends wearing it. And a couple of stores having great sell-through. They saw some numbers, but they didn't have that feeling that I was feeling. And so I had to install that into them. So I'm realizing that I need to find a partnership where I'm making t-shirts that are distressed. They have holes all over them. Who's selling jeans that are distressed? Because jeans and t-shirts, 24/7, that's my thing. So I'm like, who's the jean company? I want their salesperson, because if they sell those jeans, they can sell my t-shirt easily with their jeans and the higher price point.
Yeah.
So H. Lorenzo, go back to that store. He has this huge store, and along the whole entire wall, he had a whole wall of this one brand. And he was the only store in Los Angeles that had it. It was called True Religion. It was before it became what it is today.
Yeah, they went big.
Yeah, they became a $300 million company at one point.
Wow.
Yeah, big numbers. But H. Lorenzo was the first to have all the new stuff. No one had it. It wasn't sold out. It wasn't played out. It was the coolest thing. And I saw those jeans. It's like, these are the coolest jeans I've ever seen. and the stitch work. And I tried a mom that had this twisted leg, and I was like, this is so cool. These are so cool. What is this? He's like, True Religion is local guy. He's like, I'm the only one that has them. That's like his thing, exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, who's his salesperson? And it was this dude named Joe. So I'm like, give me Joe's number. I want him to sell my t-shirts. And True Religion, they were exclusive in LA with him, but they were selling all over the place. They were pretty big at this point. They were a $2 million business. They were up and going, big company at this time. But he had a big exclusive lockdown on it for that area or Los Angeles. Anyways, call up Joe at the showroom, which is a showroom called Atelier. And I asked for Joe. Joe's not available. Call back the next day. No Joe, no Joe, no Joe. Leave a message, leave a message, leave a message. Now I have a vision. Joe is my main purpose. If I can get him to sell this, and the owner's name is Jana. So I call and I ask for Jana or Joe, and they just deny my calls all day long. And I email them. You have these catalogs and lookbooks. I email them all the time. Nothing. I'm just like, I even go there, which is a big no-no. It's appointment only. You don't walk into them. They won't come out. Mm-hmm. They're not a store. Like it's for buyers only to go into their showrooms. I even go there and I'm like, hey, I'm just downtown. Thought I'd stop by. And I drove there to go see them. Mm-hmm. If I can get in your face and I can tell you who I am and my passion and my story, I can sell you. I know I can. Not sell you, but I can at least, you can just give me a chance. You know, it's just not a t-shirt. It's like this whole thing. And couldn't do it. Couldn't get in. I was just like, so annoying. So here's the story. Lisa Klein, the #1 store in Los Angeles at that time. Joe walks into Lisa Klein, because it's the hot store, buys our t-shirt, puts it on, and it said, happiness is a warm gun, which is a John Lennon song. And it had a big revolver print on it that I shot.
Good song.
Yeah, great song. And it's all distressed. It is a really fun t-shirt. He's walking in the showroom a couple days later at his office, and the owner, Jana, says, oh, what's that shirt? That's cool. He's like, I love it. It's this brand. He's called Morphine Generation. She's like, Morphine Generation. She's like, what the this fucking kid. She's told me this story at my replay. This fucking kid is relentless. This guy has emailed me literally. She's like, I know. He emails me. His shirts are amazing. They're great. I've gotten like 10 compliments on this shirt. So he had it in his hand. He had it on him. He fucking bought it. And somehow there was a crossover.
That's huge. Yeah.
Huge. So lightning struck the third time.
Damn.
And in that moment, Janet says, you want to sell it? She's like, I'll fucking sell this. He's like, it's on you then. And he calls me. He's like, hey, it's Joe from Atelier Showroom. And it's like, hey, it's Joe from Capitol Records. I'm like, yeah. He goes, he's like, why don't you come in? We want to talk about selling your line globally.
Damn.
And that was
wowzer.
She literally said, she's like, can you do it? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, can you keep up with the demand that I will throw at you? And she said, we'll laugh our way to the bank. And I was like, and then I had to figure out, okay, we need a lot more than my friend's 12 grand. So we called it.
We might need a little more.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So we said, let's do a market. We did a market. And what happened was exactly what I saw. I knew I needed to ride on the coattails of a dragon. And at the time, the smoking, fiery dragon was True Religion. So if I could get on that coattail, because every store in America and the world was going to that showroom to buy True Religion. It was the hottest shit. I mean, they couldn't, it was just people lined up to get it.
As I recall, those clothes weren't cheap, or those jeans weren't cheap either.
Oh, no, and that's why I liked it.
$300, $400 pair of jeans.
Exactly.
Which I remember at that time, I was like, who the hell is going to pay $300, $400 for a pair of goddamn jeans?
Yeah. And those people that created it had the same vision, essentially, as I did. I wanted to have a premium price point and premium product. So I needed to team up with people that had the same philosophies as mine. So that's why I was like, this would be a great partnership, even though we're not partnering with True Religion, but getting in the same
they kind of broke the ice, right? In terms of
100%.
Here's a price point, here's a high-end custom good in the apparel world, and we're already rocking and rolling in all these stores.
100%. And they had thousands of stores and we're doing millions of dollars. So we roll in there with our rolling rack for the first market. And I would just hear the Joe and Jana, they were machines. These people are one of the most powerful. They created a James Pierce, which is one of the very high-end. They started it, not created. They were the salespeople for it. They did Splendid, which is a multi-million-dollar company. Like they created some master brands. Not created, excuse me. They launched and sold them from start, from germinating the seed. So here we are, we're in some real thick, rich soil with a little germinated seed. Basically, we have a little business, 60 grand, big deal. These guys are doing POs for like 250,000 at a time for one store, like big stuff. So we're in here and it's the big league. They're like, let's see how a market goes. Then we'll really discuss contracts and stuff. So they're like, people would walk in, they're there for True Religion. That's all they really want. And they say, okay, and this is the power of a showroom. And this is why you could never replace a showroom with this kind of power. When you have the right lineup, you want True Religion, first you buy Morphine. And people are like, okay. They're like, really? And he's like, yeah, this t-shirts goes with these jeans. You're going to sell double. So, and they're like, well, I'm here for True Religion. I just have a, but no, first you buy the t-shirts. So she did this to everyone. Now,
wow.
That put us on. That's
gangster.
That is gangster. That is power.
Very smart.
That is how you can build a product with the right team and the right people. So she hand laid every brick, and Joe was like the real bricklayer, and she was kind of like, she was the cement between it because it was her operation, but he was the brick guy. He would say, he would do all the hard work. He'd like, go see Joe at Morphine, like right here, write up your orders and then come back, and then you can buy True Religion. So
and I just want to interject for a second, because this is a lesson I've learned in business. In order to scale up, sales is a very important part of the recipe in order to do that. It's like, it's actually a roadblock. Like you were saying, like nobody's going to sell as good as I can sell, but I'm the visionary. I'm not the salesman. So in order to find a salesman, it's not always the easiest thing, but if you do find the right one or the right team, like you're talking about, you could be on the rocket ship to the moon, and then later comes in the fulfillment.
And I forgot to say before I had the vision, I keep saying vision because you're brainwashing me with your vision hunters.
Vision hunters, baby. Hunt down that vision, folks.
Yeah, man. And, and it is visions for me. It's like, I don't consider I definitely have an average intelligence, but I'm not logically it's like the things come to me, kind of like that book, Big Magic, an idea. What is an idea? An idea is something that's floating around in the ethers, the cosmos. And if you're an open, let's say, vessel, it's going to come to you. And you can choose to do it or not. So I don't really hold any like egoic belief system of like, I created this thing. It's like, it was given to me by something unbeknownst. And I made a decision to act on it. That's all I did.
Yep.
That's all I did. Now, thousands and billions of people, 1,000 times a day, are getting a little whisper, and like, and that whisper, it's not going to shout at me whenever it comes, like, you should do it. It's like, no, it's just like, and it's like, oh, and that scares me. I don't want to do that. And it's like, oh, and that's the idea. It's coming to me. And if I don't do the idea, guess what? You've seen it. It pops up over there. 6 months to a year later, I had that fucking idea.
Someone else does it.
No, you didn't. It just went from you to that dude or girl. It's going to find someone to express what it needs to express. And either you're going to be there to be that vessel to do it, or you're not. And a lot of ideas, I don't have time or money or energy to do it. And I'm like, cool, I'll see it when I see it, is what I say these days. And sure enough, there it is. Like, oh man, there's that cool like mount that I was thinking about for a guitar on a wall that's been, whatever that there's so many of those things. And I hear all my friends, I had that idea. I'm like, well, why didn't you do it then? Whose fault is that?
Ideas are just ideas.
And that's the real roadblocks. Like in meditation, which I do so much meditation twice a day, 20 minutes. And, when you're in that quantum field, when you're in the transcendental state, everything, there is no time or future or past. It's all right now. So I can envision myself as a successful or operating a business or an idea or a concept. But when I come out of that space, now I'm in my third dimensional human body, and I have all my blocks. I have my self-doubt. I have my, I can't do that. It's going to cost too much money. It's going to take too much energy. All that gets in the way. Merging those two, coming into this, back into my body with all my blocks. So first I have to clear out all my blocks. And this is stuff that I teach people, entrepreneur, starting a business, doing anything. It's an inside job. You have to clear your own inner shit out. Your inner life has to be in harmony so that you feel that you have the worthiness and energy to step out and do these ideas that come to you. Anyone, especially yourself, will stop you from doing it. It's like, I can't do that. It's already being done 1,000 different ways. And it's really important who you tell, because most people are saying, nah, I can't do that. And I go tell my dad, my dad's opposite. Go do it. Is always his thing. Go do it. See what happens. So he's not the guy, but there's other people around me that I know not to go to with this kind of stuff, because they're gonna say, "Ooh, that's risky. I don't know about that one. I don't think that would work." You got to be careful who you tell these things to, because if I hear one no in that very vulnerable state. Oh yeah, he's right, or she's right. I can't do that. So, and that's where it gets really tricky. But when I'm in harmony with this flow and with my inside life and the people that are around me, like whenever I tell my mentors, I had an idea to write a kid's book, which was a true idea. I was meditating, and then this whole book downloaded in my brain, and I was like, I'm not a writer. And, this is all the ego, the body. It's going to say, you can't do it. You're publishing, please. That's the dumbest. You're never going to make a dime doing that. All the logic comes in, and I have to put that aside and say, well, it's not always about the money. What's the why? And I want to express this. I really feel there's like this thing in me I want to really express. And my mentor that I talk to, I tell him, like, I got this crazy vision, man. I'm supposed to write a kid's book. That's incredible. What's it called? When's it coming out? And then that's the people that I surround myself with. I don't go, what do you know about writing? You're not a writer, dude. You can barely spell, and that's true. I'm dyslexic and basically like, illiterate on some levels. It's like, there's no business when I talk about this third dimensional. I don't have the education. I don't have the resources, the connections. That's all getting stuck. Like I said, when I get in the stuckness of it, instead of just doing it. So the people around me, they're like incredible, and they lift me and they're like, do it. You're the guy for it. Amazing. When's it coming out? And then it's up to me to get into the action and actually step in day to day into those fears of the unknown. It's terrifying. And one of my favorite quotes there's a great old legend story where a guy's walking out way far from his palace, and it gets dark, and he's lost in the woods, and all these creatures are starting to come out, and it's starting to get creepy sounding. He hears like things stepping around him. He can't see anything, so he goes into total panic, like just blacks out everything, and he's just like, okay, and freezes. Fight, flight, or freeze. So he was in freeze. He's like, I don't even know where I am. This is so scary. But what he did was he just put one foot in front of him, and as he started walking, the path started to reveal itself. because he took one step and he's like, oh, and if you ever walked in the dark, it's like that. You're looking around, you can't see anything. But as you start walking, you're like, oh, there's a table right here. And okay, there's that. And then that's what it's like. Mm-hmm. As like an entrepreneur, when an idea comes to me or to anyone, it's never like an easy path to like go right on. I can see the end. It's like GPS. It's like I'm gonna make a left, make a right, and in 20 minutes I'm gonna be there, and it's gonna be this, and that much gas is gonna cost, and it's like it's a whole unknown.
It's very colorful and dynamic, and it's not quite that linear.
Correct.
As our logical brain would like to make us believe. In regards to what you're talking about with entrepreneurship, what are some of the ways that entrepreneurship in business has required you to grow personally?
Yeah. So that first business, Morphine Generation, I drank a lot and I was a rock star. Remember, that was my mentality.
That lifestyle. Yeah.
Lifestyle, baby. And
sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
100%, man. And what ended up happening on that, which is where I learned a great lesson, was Morphine Generation was my baby. Mm-hmm. And Morphine Generation had 2 dads. Mm-hmm. And we both nurtured this thing. And what ended up happening with Morphine Generation, just to fast track it, within 36 months, we became an $8 million business.
Wow.
And that was a lot for a 21-year-old to handle. Oh, I think I was 23 at that time. And
well, that's a lot of lightning.
That's a lot of lightning.
Getting blasted.
That's the 3 strikes. I call it 3 strikes right there. And if you hit the 3 strikes, so what happened with that? We had employees, we had an office, you know. And as my dad said, I'll never be good as you had it right there. Our margins dwindled down, not too much. We kept an eye on our margins. Our business, our overhead was smart. We did all the right things. We had great guidance from my dad and great guidance from my partner's dad, both real smart business entrepreneur men. Mm-hmm. And they were basically essentially on our board and really guided us and got us through. And but what ended up happening was, which was some of the greatest lessons that I look at today, is this guy that I did this business with, we were partners in crime since high school. Okay. Mm. We were best friends. We were roommates. We were bandmates. We travel. Our families were like, we were really a mesh and a real codependency on some level, you know, just a real brotherhood, like, you know, partner in crime. Right.
Yeah.
So this guy and I, what ended up happening is lesson 1, you never know how people are going to behave until you do business with them.
Oh, yeah.
I knew this guy for 15 fucking years. Like you know, but when money comes into play and control comes into play and
success
and success and splitting up the money and who's doing what and who's doing this, and well, you did design and you only did one thing and I did 5 things, and it starts to get
tick for tat.
Yeah. And it starts to get real muddy and people's feelings get hurt. And I was drinking a lot more, and I was irresponsible with my drinking. I wouldn't answer my phone in the morning, and I'm running a fucking business. And I was still that rock star mentality. Like, I don't know, I'm out all night. I'm in Hollywood. I'm partying. I own a fucking clothing line. I'm the man, like real ego driven stuff. And, thought I was good. I was good, man.
It's going to last forever.
Dude, we did 8 million, 36 months, you know, give me something like that and I'll run with it. So what ended up happening was I woke up one morning, hungover as shit, and I get in the office super late, and it just, you know, that lifestyle was always like, oh fuck, what did I do last night? And my phone has like 100 things and I'm responsible for 100 things. And God, it's just that bewilderment of like anxiety and like shit. I have 1,000 stories to tell when I get to the office. Oh, my car broke, and you know, just it would always be something with me. It would always be something. My phone died. The power went out. And my AC blew the. Just always. Oh my! I was downtown working, but my phone was off. I mean, just lies and really in the disease of alcoholism, which really kind of ran my life and that lifestyle. So eventually they put a letter on my desk, and my partner looks at me and he goes, "You may want to call a lawyer." I was like, "What?"
Damn.
And it was, it was straight up. There was no conversation. There was some warnings before that saying, "Hey, the employee was saying that you were drunk at the office and like she's nervous. You were saying things." I was like, what did I say? I was just being rowdy and playing music and rocking out and being a rock star, like it just scared her. And then that came up to the board, and they're like, "Dude, you gotta like pull your shit together." And essentially they said, "Yo, we want to buy you out." And I was so hurt. I couldn't see that I was in my own self-demise, and I didn't have a problem at all. I was just living my life. You got a fucking problem. That's how my mind was telling me. But when they gave me that letter, I was just so angry. First the anger came, and then came these fucking guys. Like, I'll do it without them, or they think they can do it without me. And that whole battle came out. And we had to go into arbitration and do all the lawyer things, and it was so uncomfortable. And I was walked through a lot of fears, and I called my dad, and I was like, "Dad, they're getting rid of me." He's like, "No one can get rid of you. You're 50% owner of this thing, essentially. Like, they can't just get rid of you. They can buy you out." Then I learned the whole thing about buying someone out. You can buy them out. You can be bought out. You can make deals. You can do all these things. You don't have to go fucking anywhere. Just because they want to buy you out and they don't like the way that you drink or make coffee in the office, you can stay on the board for the rest of your life. And there's all sorts of ways. And my dad was like, "Try to make it work," was his thing. And my 23-year-old brain, self-righteous brain, was like, "Fuck these guys. I'll go do a new thing." And my dad's like, "I would really try to make what worked, because it's hard to strike lightning the way you did." And I just said, "I don't care. I'm not going to work with these guys if they're just going to throw me out like this." So it was this whole thing. We went into arbitration, lawyers back and forth, learned a lot there. And essentially my dad's like, "Look, you want to do this business?" He had a big clothing business, big operation. He'd buy companies. He had like 16 companies under his main brand. There were all these different divisions. He's like, "If you can do it, we'll buy it from them." So he came in as a buyer because he saw the success of it, and he believed in me, which was very incredible. And they didn't want to sell. They're like, "We're not interested in selling." So my dad threw out some numbers. So he's like, "Well, okay, what's your offer to Elliot?" And my dad's like walking in the park. He's like, "All right, yeah, okay." And like, just like he's been here 1,000 times. Me, I can barely look at my partners across the table. I'm all emotional. I'm not in my business state at all. I'm all just really in the self-absorbed kind of like, "I can't believe you did this to me," trapped in resentment. And they put a check across the table. My lawyer looks at the check, and he goes to me. He's like, "Look, give us a minute." He takes me in a room. He's like, "Look, I know how you feel. This is your child. It's being ripped away from you. But this amount of money on this check right here is more than you'll ever see working here for multiple years. And businesses like this don't last that long. 95% of your businesses that you're in right now fail with over 5 to 10 years. You're 3 years in, take the money." And I just was like, I don't, because I wasn't really gonna fight for this baby as my child. And I felt defeat, and I heard this reasoning at a moment of clarity, as we say. And I said, "Okay." And I took the check, and I went deep within. I had a big check in my hand, but it didn't matter. I didn't win. I lost my best friend. I lost my child. I was really like in this like, whoa, what am I doing with my life? Like, wow, I couldn't still see my part in it necessarily. I still thought that I was a victim. It took years of like healing and like, whoa, dude, you're a total fuck up. Like, and like now I look at myself, I'm like, I would have fired my ass too. I was like irresponsible. yeah, I was charismatic and great and I created the company, but when you're running an operation, you show up, you're operating, you're daily doing this stuff. And I wasn't ready for all that. Just straight up. I was in my 20s and I wanted to be what I thought was MTV rock star.
You saw a lot of success early.
Saw a lot of success early. Great lesson there. And
so you did say yes, you took the check.
I took the check.
And left with a resentment.
Huh?
And left with a resentment.
Big one. Big resentment. I said, good luck without me. See if you can do it on your own. Just, a whole very emotional young entrepreneur, businessman, person's experience. And I've had that happen, not due to like my performance, but just, I've sold and been bought out of companies about 3 or 4 times now since then. And it's just business. Now it's just business. I'm just like, yeah, you know what? It makes sense financially. This, that. We'll just call it even, and it's all good. So that was a huge lesson for me in that business.
So you left Morphine Generation, right?
Yeah.
And then you have built what we know now as Stoned Immaculate. How did you come up with this concept for an apparel line and this brand to be here once again in the apparel business, crushing it?
Yeah. Well, there was about 3 or 4 companies in between that.
Okay.
And I built them up and I actually sold them. That's kind of like my motto is build it up. And then if it does really well, does someone want to buy it that's bigger than me? And then I get bought out and I stay on and I move on and start a new thing. The whole world changed from wholesale to online, and I wanted to get online. So there was an online opportunity with Instagram really starting up and being a thing. So I was like, how do I get online? And with Stoned Immaculate, it was, the vision was just to be an online brand. And the concept, the idea is the 70s apparel, taking vintage items and rework and being inspired by them and taking them to market with a vintage feel and the whole 70s energy field around it. And, in the 60s, 70s, that's my whole thing. I love rock and roll. I love 70s music. I love 70s cars, 70s colors, 70s house. Like my house, everything is like a 70s kind of twist. And I just loved how things were made. They were made to last back then. It wasn't about fast fashion and stuff coming and going and falling apart after 3 wears. And your vintage essentially was your dad or your mom's thing, and you're wearing it because it was made well. So that's what I wanted to do, and I liked that whole aesthetic. So I essentially I was floating around doing a lot of consulting, and I came across a client who had a vintage business selling vintage through Instagram and Shopify. And I said to her, this is a great platform to make ready to wear clothing from. You have this great platform, you have an audience, and as a starting point, this is something I'd be interested in investing in and building a brand, which wasn't her. She didn't have that knowledge. She would just take vintage items, style them, and then put them on the Instagram and website, and it would sell. But I really loved the concept, and it was a platform to start from. Instead of starting from thin air or in the middle of the ocean, it's nice to start with a little platform, some sort of audience. Because starting from scratch, from nothing, it takes a long time to get there. So that's why most businesses, as you know, once they're up and going, they just buy businesses. They just keep stacking them on because they already have a great foundation. They're just building multiple skyscrapers essentially. So I said to this time, I don't want to start from scratch. Starting from very, very scratch, it just takes years. It takes about 4 or 5 years before you're even like in the realm. Then it takes another 5 years, even though if you got it, it takes a long time. So I said, here's something to work with. There was 30,000 Instagram followers, pretty good audience. She was doing about $5,000 in vintage. So I said, I made a deal. I went to my pops. He just sold his business, retired, and he loves business and he likes to get involved with things. And I said, you want to help and get involved? I'm going to start a ready-to-wear brand. It's called Stoned Immaculate. It's got a great following, a great thing. We're going to invest in it. We're going to buy her Instagram. We're going to buy her inventory, the vintage, give her a bunch of money, essentially, make her a partner in the brand that we're going to start. And we're going to start a whole clothing line, and it's going to be sold direct to consumer. And my dad's ears lit up. He's like, ooh, direct to consumer. I like that. I haven't been able to get involved. He's old school like me. He sells to stores and has thousands of salespeople and has huge overhead and trade shows. And it's a lot of expense to get a thing sold.
But now so you can go online.
Yeah. So he was excited to get involved in that. And let's go back to that $15 to make a shirt, sell it for $45, sell it for $100. Now I'm making a shirt for $15, selling it for $100. That's a big margin gap. Those are like 60 to 70% margin dollars. So my dad's always looking at the margin, which any business person should be looking at. What's your margin with your overhead, your raw costs, your labor, everything. So the margin dollar for direct to consumer, as anyone that knows anything about raw products, is huge. So that's what excited him out on a business level.
Hell yeah. Direct to consumer, bro.
Yeah, direct to consumer. And so we did that deal, we put it together, and it was a risk. You know, my dad's like, hey, it's a risk. The thing with apparel or the thing with anything, essentially, you know, a lot of people are like, I need $1 million. You got a bit. So business plans, I rip business plans in half. People probably think you're a fucking idiot, whatever. I rip them in half. I'm not interested. I need $1 million. I can project this is going to be $1 billion business by 2025. And I can pitch. No. Not interested. I don't need $1 million to start something. So many people, I need $1 million to get it. $1 million when you're starting a company, you're going to burn it all to find out where you're at. Do it with the littlest money as possible, bootstrap as possible, and do as much as you can do on your own until that tipping point, and when you have the money to hire out. And that's how my dad is. That's how I'm trained. That's how we do it. So, you know, that was the big thing. Was my dad was like, okay, it's not going to cost a lot of money to put some samples together because I know how to do that. I know how to design, I know how to make clothes. I have all the factories downtown. They all do everything organically, sustainable, recycled fabrics. I love all that stuff. Really ethically, beautifully made, made locally. So I have all that on lock. I know how to do all that. We have an audience that we think will take it. They'll buy vintage, but we're not a vintage business. We're in a vintage inspired business. So the risk was, okay, how much is it going to cost to get up and going to see if this customer that buys vintage, are they going to buy the non-vintage but vintage looking item? And that was the risk. And, you know, we said, hey, we made a deal. We said, we'll put like 30 grand. I did the math. I need about 30 grand to get a collection up. But the difference is with online versus wholesale, I need to stock the shelves. I can't just make one of this thing and, hey, do you like it? I got to make 20, have it on the shelf to sell, right? So that's where the real investment is buying stock. Hopefully you're buying stock in the right stuff. We did that. We launched, and it hit. It was a good hit. They dug it. The vintage purchaser converted to the vintage inspired clothing. And we did a really good job. Like, hats off to our efforts. We took a lot of time in making sure it looked vintage, feels vintage. And it goes back to how I used to distress t-shirts 20 years ago. I'm using those same techniques, which I have really, I've become a master, 10,000 hours of doing so. I've mastered distressing so it really looks vintage the way that I make things. And it just doesn't smell vintage. That's literally the difference. And so many people pick up my shirts, are like, is this new or old? And I'm like, no, I make it look that way. It's all hand done. And all that hand work that I used to do, I trained people on assembly lines, essentially downtown, to do that, to hand distress things. They use machines now. We've gotten very smart from our like stick and stone caveman style.
Hands and razor blades.
Yeah, we have machines and big washing techniques. We put all this stuff in washer and dryers, and it distresses the hell out of these things. It looks like this amazing, great washed down 70s pair of jeans, which is nothing too new in the denim, but in other stuff, it's been a process. So that's basically, the start of that. and where it's been going online. So our thing is, we started at 30,000 followers, and our business today is, we're not a fashion line. That's number one. What we are, we're a marketing machine, because we're selling a lifestyle. So we are doing, our whole thing is photo shoots, campaigns, models. We rent old cars. I rent Jimi Hendrix house in Laurel Canyon. I've rented out for locations, like really authentic, that haven't been touched since the 60s and 70s, of that whole Laurel Canyon, California golden era of like the Woodstock energy. Like, we go the extra mile. We even shoot everything on 35 millimeter film, so it looks and feels like that time. And that's so much extra work compared to where I come from, where it's like, make a sample, throw it on a rack, go to a trade show, here it is. You know, I wasn't doing, you know, I was like in the garment business, slanging, selling stuff, selling stores, collecting money. Now I'm like, and you still had to do campaigns and all that stuff for those other businesses. But now, like, our real main focus is constantly putting something on our Instagram that's going to emotionally hook you to feel like, I need that thing. Because you're not, now you've lost the experience of going to a store and touching it, and trying it on. So how am I going to get you to, you know, how am I going to get you to try this on? I really have to play a psychological game, which is marketing. It's all psychological. You got to link into the psyche of it. So that's what we're doing always. We're doing all this campaigning and imagery, and building our Instagram, building our mailing list, and really focusing on the visual content of it all. And the product is still, it's incredible. It fits great. It wears great, all that stuff. But our main focus is growing our audience, growing our Instagram, growing the awareness. And we started at 30,000 Instagram followers. We didn't hire any PR companies. We didn't hire any algorithm things, because all that does to, I've had over 20 PR companies over my career, so much PR stuff, and I have books, huge, thick 3-inch ring binder books. No, like 7-inch, 3-inch, the binders, just filled with press from all my brands. Doesn't really mean anything. It kind of helps, but times have changed. The game has changed, you know. PR.
Well, we're talking like direct to consumer now.
We're talking,
you know, being a baby in business myself, as far as I still feel like a student, one of the things that I've learned from a guy who's a sales copywriter is that I'm a marketer that does X. I used to have the equation backwards. It's like, I'm a marketer that sells clothing. I'm a marketer that happens to be a personal trainer. I'm a marketer that happens to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
And that switch in mind is so wild, because I've gone at it in a completely different capacity. And once my mind shifted to understand this is about marketing, like, my brain exploded, and now I have a new pair of glasses that I see everything through. And without that, I found, and my experience proves it, that my dreams were small and they weren't going to get much bigger until I had that so-called epiphany and that wake-up call to start seeing, wait a minute, I've got to get in front of people, and that's my job. My job is to build this connection between me and them, or my services or my products and them. And you talked about it earlier, how you don't go into the store, so you lose that connection. And through marketing, we can build that connection. And to me, it's all about relationships and building rapport and going deeper than just the service or deeper than just the product. But we got to start somewhere. And that's going to be through our words. It's going to be through videos. It's going to be through pictures. It's going to be through what you call campaigning. And it's just like taking business in a new direction into a whole nother level, because marketing's been around, but this is direct response marketing that we're talking about, direct to consumer sales. And that's why when you were hitting on sales early on in the first chapter of your journey. And now I hear a lot of emphasis on the marketing. And that's why I wanted to take a moment just to kind of throw this out there for anybody who's listening, because this is, for me right now, a game changer. And I'm so fascinated by it. And I'm just so interested and drawn into that realm, into that new understanding of, I'm a marketer that has a podcast.
Yes.
And then my actions and my intention coming from that place is completely different. And to me, marketing can be slimy, but it doesn't have to be slimy. What's your intention? Sales can be slimy, but it doesn't have to be slimy. What is your intention? Where are you coming from? And I've never been a slimy salesman, but I've been able to sell my ass off because I believe in who I am. I believe in what I have. And I believe in that I can have a profound positive impact on you. All I need to do is help you say yes to yourself, and the transformation can begin. So whether it's marketing or sales, I love them both more than ever because I've had to recontextualize the ideas that I've held about those things as well in order to get clear and get honest with who I am and how I want to go about conducting business in the future and right now.
Totally. That's beautiful.
I just wanted to shine a little bit of light on that because I'm hearing that come from you a lot right now, and I love it. And I know when we were up in the forest at a beautiful cabin doing a little, retreat, we were able to talk about some of these things. And I'm just like, God, man, what a breath of fresh air, because it was either nobody told me about these things before, or I just wasn't ready to hear them, and probably a combination of both.
Yeah. And that's the pivoting, and any business, any life experience, from pivoting to smartphones to becoming more, just changing all the time. But yeah, going into a store and slaying into someone, I don't get to do that anymore. I mean, I could, but that's not my business. My business is direct to consumer for 1,000 reasons, mainly the margin. And controlling my own destiny, essentially, because I'd sell Barney's, for example, and that's an amazing window and calling card to say I'm in Barney's, but Barney's is out of business now. So Barney's owes millions of dollars to so many brands, and you're really at the mercy of the store. If the store doesn't want to pay you, or goes out of business or bankrupt, like, it'll kill businesses. And that happened to me with a lot of stores. So I said, I'm not going to put myself in these positions anymore and stretch it so thin where I'm giving credit to all these stores, and 20 are dropping out or going out of business. And, I'm sitting here with the bag. I owe money. So that's why
it's like you're building everybody else up, and you got all the risk, and it may or may not work here. And where does that lead?
Yeah.
Where's that going to leave you?
It's 100%. It all lands on, the brand, how much risk you want to take. And, these bigger guys, like a negative thing that my dad's always said. I remember I got my first order from a major, meaning Nordstrom. So you sell boutiques, they give you small, pretty good orders. But when the majors, the big boys come in, or big girls, they come in, they give you $500,000 PO. So that, that $7,000 PO of Lisa Klein now is a $500,000 PO. And they're like, here you go. And it's all on you to make it happen. You have to finance the whole thing. You have to deliver it on time. If something's wrong, if you ship something and there's a little snag in the shirt, it's all coming back to you. And you eat all that. And you can go out of business like that because you're expecting that money to come back. So my dad would always say, when I got my first big order, I'm like, Dad, and my mentor and helper, I'm like, I got a $250,000 PO from Nordstrom. And he's like, oh yeah, they'll give you enough rope to hang yourself. I'm like, what? He just took all the wind out of my sail. I was like, I got a $250,000. I was so excited, on top of the mountain screaming. He's like, don't make it. Cut that thing in half. Tell them that you're not going to do a $250,000, that you're going to only do like 80,000 of it, and test the waters with them. Get it going, slowly build it. Don't just jump in there, and he taught me that. I didn't have to learn that lesson, which so many people had to learn that hard lesson. So anyways, going back to the direct consumer, yeah, it's we're marketers, and and I've always been a marketer. My first trade show, which I think we could kind of wrap up essentially, unless you have more questions regarding other ones.
We're going to have to do a part 2. This usually seems to be the ongoing theme with my podcast,
man,
already. It's like, dude, we're almost 2 hours in. I'm like, shit, man, we still have another, I don't know, 10, 15 questions, but it's like, hey, we'll save it for another time and we'll keep just digging deeper. So whatever
that's
you
exciting.
Wanna...
It's always something new, and I think the grassroots willingness, action, the blind faith, the courage, those things haven't changed. My first sale of apparel, I walked into those stores. You heard that story. So then Lisa said, hey, you need to go to a trade show where there's thousands of buyers coming to your booth and buying orders. I'm like, genius. So there's a trade show called Project in Vegas. We order a booth, we get a booth. It's like $8,000. We got to get a hotel room. We're like 10 grand in to get there, get everything set up. And once again, I'm not selling clothes, I'm selling marketing. So I'm thinking to myself, I know trade shows a little bit from just watching my dad go to those things. I want to give stuff away to people, like a flyer, like here's my booth number 10. So my company's called Morphine Generation. I make an actual prescription bottle. I order them online and I get a label made with our logo, and it says take 1 or 2 Doctor Subscribe by Elliot Hans, and I signed it, and that had my booth number on one side of it. And we had those to give out to people, and there were pills inside. They were actual mints. They were Mentos, or sorry, they were like an Altoid. And you'd open it up, and people were, it was super like over the top, like what the hell, you're bringing pills in here? We actually got stopped like taking them, and we got stopped all over. I'm like, no, they're mints, and it says really small, this is not a drug on the back. They looked real, and it was interesting, and it had morphine on there because I was the branding. So we get to the trade show. We're super pumped. We're going to sell $1 million. That's our goal. And it's day one. It's 3 days and no one's, just thousands of people, like a river walking in front of me. Not one person looks and like stops. And they touch it. They go like this. They touch and, oh, that's nice. And they keep on, no one's stopping. I'm like, what? What's going on? And I can see a pattern here. Like no one's going to, oh man, this is a joke. No one's stopping here. There's 1,000 things. They're going for the big stuff. They're busy. They have budgets, all this stuff. So then I'm starting to go, hey, how's your day going? Hey, want to see some Morphine Generation? That's people are like, oh God, bro, what? And
so you're trying to find the hook.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck this. I grab my chair. I drag it in the middle of the aisle, which I call the river. I sit down right in the middle. They're all walking by. I bring a box of those pills. I'm just rattling them. Like, here you go. Here you go. Here you go. And people are stopping. They're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, just take one. Call me later. My number's on the back. Booth number's here. And people are like, what are? And the conversations start. And I tell you what, it was like chum. Everyone that's on a lake fishing, they're watching the other fishermen essentially like, oh, they're getting some action over there. They try to go over there. We were like that. Our booth, all these fish started coming to it, and people were like, what are they doing? They must have something, like, what is their secret? And the secret was I drug my shit out in the middle of the river, and I started shaking this thing that had nothing to do with the clothes to intrigue them. And then once I can talk to you, I can say, hey, come take a look at this. And I'd be like, oh, it's in this booth. You want to, oh, don't worry about it. We're just selling teas, but take 2 of these mints or these pills. And they were just like, oh my God, this is so funny. These are so cool. And a lot of people would just take it and walk off. And then by the end of the day, on the 3rd day, a lot of those people came back to my booth with my pill bottle, put it on the table and said, you're fucking crazy. They're like, this is the smartest thing I've ever seen. Like, what are you selling? I'm like, we have these incredible t-shirts. So like, all right, let me buy some. But if you're doing this kind of shit, I'm interested where you're going. And it was that move that got them to come into my booth to buy this thing. And that was the lesson. And I'm really good at that. You throw me in a trade show, I'm like the guy. Like that's what I do. And I don't have that anymore, essentially. Yeah. So So that was the start of Morphine at our first trade show. That's before we had a sales team with that big team, because then they'd go to the shows and they had all the buyers that would go to them. But our first time before we had a show and we went to a trade show, and no one stopped. And thank God we came up with these pill idea just for fun, because we thought it'd be cool. We give them away with purchase, and no one was buying. So I was like, we're just giving them away. And that was the concept. So things unfold, but you got to have that boldness and taking the action and don't
put yourself out there and take a risk.
Don't surrender. Don't give up. You know, don't just let go. Okay, this is what it's meant to be. Fuck trade shows. Like, no, man. You just.
I hear adaptation.
100%, and the pivoting all the time, and that's entrepreneurship 101. That's running a business all day long. There's a new fire to put out. There's only solution. There's no problems. What's the solution here? And it's so exciting. It's like a daily puzzle of like, you know, oh, okay, we're going to try it, you know, and it's just, and there's 1,000 things with direct to consumer that everyone's pitching, from online marketing, campaigning, and programs. And there's so much, but that was basically the start. And so many of those people really stopped because of me just getting in their face, jangling something that had nothing to do with what I was selling, which was something I had no idea, which when I learned proper sales, which is pretty much the same way I do it, but with Napoleon Hill, he would always say, I teach people how to become real salespeople. And his one of the, you know, the idea is you're selling energy. And you sit at a table and you got a briefcase with your product, and you never put it on the table. You put it under the table and you connect. I tell you about my wife, my kids, my this, you talk sports. You find a connection, a human connection. So, you know, I'm just not trying to take advantage of you, which I'm really not. And that's my truth. Like, I'm here to have fun. I'm living life. I really want to know about you. And I know I learned about all my buyers, and we became friends. I went to a lot of weddings. Like, I built a whole friendship, family, work, colleague thing. People came to my events and weddings and all that kind of stuff. But it's selling the energy, and then pull out the thing that's in the box. It could be a hammer, it could be a vacuum, it could be a t-shirt, but they trust you. And they trust that you have integrity and self-worth and et cetera. And they're like, I'll try out the hammer with you. There's 1,000 hammer companies here, but you know, you got my attention, so let's try your hammer. So anyways, I don't know where else you want to go from here.
Well, speaking of hammers, we'll drop the hammer here. We do have a lot to talk about in terms of, you have an online business. You are also a meditation teacher, or an online program outside of your online apparel business.
Yeah.
And you're also going to be starting the Stoned Immaculate podcast in the future as well. So what we'll do is we'll do part 2, and we'll start to get into the real current state of where you are as an individual, how you're helping people, the type of impact you're having. Because I know for you, the impact you're already having is deeper than the clothes. It's beyond just the material realm. But I'd love to be able to share what you got going on now, and then what you're looking at doing as far as projects in the future, including off-grid communal living and retreats and all kinds of adventures. So what I'll do is I'm going to give you the floor to let us know where we can find you, or let the listeners know where they can find you. And then I have 3 kind of really quick exit questions, I'll call them. And then we'll just call it a wrap after that. So where can people find you?
My main hub is stonedimmaculateClothing.com, and that is a women's apparel brand, which I've been discussing. And that's under that will be our podcast, which we're launching in 2020. That's our vision, 2020 vision. Don't know the exact date yet. We're putting it all together. And that's the best place to just find me. And through that podcast, we'll lead you into another site, which we're developing, which will be a bunch of online courses for getting out of your head into your heart, manifesting the wealth that you want, your relationship with money, your relationship with marketing, your relationship with sales. So it's all this harmonious packages and online programs and retreats that we're putting together. So the best part is just Stoned Immaculate clothing. You can kind of keep track, and we'll get on the mailer. We'll send you out when our podcast is dropping, and then the podcast will be announcing all the stuff that as it unfolds.
Mm-hmm. So here we go. Here's our wrap-up question. One piece of advice or suggestion or tip do you have for our listeners in regards to each of these categories? And you only get to give us one tip or suggestion per category. So category 1, entrepreneurship. Number 2 is business. And number 3 is personal development and spirituality. It's kind of a combination there, number 3. But give me one tip or suggestion for entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship. Let me see. Wow, there's so much. I would say, let me go inside here and really answer my own question here. I would say have the faith to just take the first action in any entrepreneurship. Just have that willingness and faith just to take the first step in the darkness. Okay, so start. Number 2 is business. Anybody looking at wanting to start a business or build a business, or somebody who's kind of felt all the tidal waves within their business? One tip or suggestion? Yeah, business, no vagueness, clarity only. Okay, boom. So we have get started and make sure you have clarity. Number 3 is personal development, and or those are kind of intertwined with spirituality, depending on who you are, where you come from, and what you believe. But one tip in regards to that, personal development, spirituality. Learn to fucking meditate. I don't care what it is, headspace, follow your breath, but disconnect from your thoughts and feelings and become aware of that you're other than those things. That is the biggest gift, where I get all the vision and information from. And then I get to come back here into this dimension, if you would, and fucking do it. But meditation is number 1. Beautiful. I love it. So folks, if that happens to be you, and you're in that position similar to me, starting things over, starting life over, starting business over, working for somebody, whatever the capacity may be, it's all about getting started, making sure you get clear, that you have clarity. And don't forget, folks, meditate. I love it. So that's a wrap. Thank you, Elliot, for taking the time out of your day to share your story with us. And I also want to thank you for being a positive, uplifting, courageous friend. I truly value our friendship together. Thank you, man. I'm so fucking pumped that you're doing this, and you got your vision hunters, and that you invited me on. It's an honor. And you and I have been on about a decade of a journey of really growing and healing and expanding and being entrepreneurs. And, it's just such a gift to have a reflection of someone else that's in the pits with you, literally, or on the top of the mountains, that is doing this thing. So it's an honor to be here. Thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. That's all I have for you today. If you liked the show, please remember to like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends and family. Now, it's dope if you only take one of those actions, or a combination of maybe 2 of those actions. But you know what's really dope is if you were to take all of those actions. That would really help support me in this new endeavor of getting the Vision Hunters podcast off the ground and out into the ethers, in hopes of inspiring others to pursue their dreams or their visions. Lastly, in case you didn't know, I release new shows every Wednesday at 7 a.m. on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and in video format on YouTube. Once again, welcome to the Vision Hunters podcast, where we hunt down our visions and turn them into reality. Take care.